So we have about 4 months until Madden 20, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm starting to think more and more about the things that could be added to improve this game. So this will be a bit of a running series until release, where I'll share with you guys some of the things that I would love to see implemented. Starting with match cover 2, given the push to add match coverage in this game over the past few years, I wouldn't be surprised to see something like this soon. We have match cover 3, we have match cover 4, but cover 2 remains mostly spot drop in this game. Because of that, it's pretty easy to exploit some of the predictable holes in the defense. But I would love to still run cover 2 because you have those aggressive cornerbacks that are aggressive in the run fit to be that outside run support and are aggressive against those flat routes. So you have a lot of good things going with it, but again, we have some of those predictable holes. And we can show you just with some simple 2x2 passing concepts, say with angle smash here for example. Come on, big nickel, cover 2. Now, if we have something like the concept on the left here, which is smash concept, where we have a short route and an intermediate route, well, that cloud defender, which is really the star of the show in terms of cover 2 for Madden, I would say, he's going to sink underneath that intermediate route. So then you'll have the short route underneath for days, right? So you can get at least 7-10 yards every single down. Then, if your opponent starts to try to come down on that, well, they'll make the cornerback a little bit more aggressive, so they'll put him in a hard flat. They'll shade down, or if they're a little bit smarter, they'll just manually do that. So he'll be down on that little hitch, but then that corner route is completely free down the sideline there. So now the problem with that is because although you have 2 defenders in that area, the safety's drifting into oblivion, and that outside linebacker or that slot defender there is covering grass as well. So that's kind of one of the bad things about spot drop defense in general is that you have all of these defenders, but some of these simple route concepts with just 2 routes can be used to pick them apart if your opponent knows what's coming. Match coverage, on the other hand, usually if it's implemented correctly, will have an answer for everything, really. So though you don't see too much of it, you do have a match coverage of cover 2. So whether you want to call it cut or halves, I think Nick Saban calls it cut. Other coaches will call it halves. I'm sure other coaches have their own names and their own kind of spins on it. But in general, what you have kind of coming from left to right is, and it's actually really cool. So the cornerback, whether it's the strong cornerback or the weak cornerback, he's just waiting in the flat for the first short outward breaking route. So on the left here, it would be the hitch. So he would come down aggressively on that. Or say if he's running vertical and then number 2 comes on a flat, he's going to come down on that flat route. So much like a soft squat in this game, actually. Except, the soft squat I think is a little bit too passive, not aggressive enough. And even over here on the strong side where we have 3 players, so say if number 1 and number 2 are vertical, and number 3 runs a little flat, the halfback runs a flat, well, that cornerback's going to come down on there. Then what you're left with the rest of the players, these deep half safeties aren't just drifting into no man's land like, a spot drop cover 2, at least in this game. They're a little bit more active in this situation. So what they're going to do is they're going to read the release of the number 1 wide receiver, so the guys on the furthest outside. So if that number 1 wide receiver is vertical, whether it's a streak, a fade, a post, that safety is actually going to match that man-to-man. So he's not just, the last answer deep. He's actually getting involved. So if I showed you again that smash concept, he'd be there to help out on that. These vertical hooks are also interesting. Actually, I should say before I move on from the safeties is that if there's no vertical threat from number 1, then this safety would kind of default back to his. Actually, he would bracket number 2, and if there's nothing there, he would kind of default to his zone here. Same thing with that cornerback is that if there's nobody to his flat, he'll kind of default, to the regular cloud flat that he would play. These outside vertical hooks, they're relating to the number 2 wide receiver. So if that number 2 is vertical, he's going to match him up the field. What you'll see things like the weak hook and the strong hook have slightly different responsibilities. So the strong hook, so if the running back releases to his side, he actually has the number 2 wide receiver man-to-man everywhere he goes. So whether he's vertical, in, out, he's man-to-man locked on him. The weak hook is man-to-man on number 2 unless that number 2 goes out. Because like we were saying before, if Sharp here were to run a little outward breaking route, that cloud flat would jump on it. So you wouldn't really need to have 2 guys in the flat there. Then in that case, if he's free, he can cut or rob anything coming from number 1 underneath here. And then now, what's cool about this is that the middle linebacker here, he doesn't necessarily need to go cover all the way down the field here. Right? So a lot of people, if you're running cover 2 in this game, I mean, right now, if you're running cover 2, you're sending a ton of heat and doing a lot of crazy things. But, for the last few years, people have had to put this guy into a deep third just to, be able to run with those Tyreek Hills. Now, in this case, he doesn't really need to. So his responsibility is really just covering the number 3 receiver that isn't matched by anyone else. So maybe the running back coming across or anything coming underneath from number 2, he can match that. And now he doesn't need to have a deep third responsibility, so he can be some actual help in the run fit. Whereas, when we're running this, the deep third here, he's taken completely out of the run fit, and in this case, it's almost like a 4-man box against 5 blockers. So some really cool things that we can do with that, and then I'll show you how it kind of relates to some of these passing concepts. Is that okay? So the same little smash concept that we have before here, the way it kind of works out is that the cornerback on the weak side here would essentially be playing hard flat, right? Because he's coming aggressively down on that little hitch. Then number 2 is vertical on that corner route, right? So the weak vertical hook would be man-to-man on him. And this safety here will not have to relate to number 1 vertical, so he's going to help on number 2. So I could just, say man-to-man here. Unfortunately, there isn't any kind of bracket logic in Madden. That's also something that I'd like to see kind of going forward. So when I run the corner route, you'll see that both of these guys will get beat, but ideally they'll have inside out on him and below and above. Actually, yeah, just inside out. Over here, so we have really nothing coming to this cloud flat, this cornerback in the flat. So he's really just going to be his default cloud flat assignment. We have man-to-man everywhere he goes with number 2 here because we're on that strong side. Number 1, again, is vertical, so the safety here is man-to-man on him. And now you have this guy, which is actually going to relate to the free number 3 coming across, which is the running back. So it ends up looking like, if I can do this with 2 hands, it ends up looking something like this. But, this is something we can do here, sure. And, a lot of people in this game like to do cross-man to answer for some of those crossing routes or the corner routes or whatever. But the beauty of match coverage is that you don't have to guess what your opponent is doing. You have an answer for them with, this system of rules. So this could change depending on the route combination, but just in this case, that's what it is. And we'll run this, obviously, match coverage, a lot of the cases is like man coverage. So there are going to be places where you're kind of, getting beat if you're one-on-one, and the leverage is a little bit better, but at least you're not wide open like in some of the cases that I showed you there. So we'll run the instant replay here. I'll show you kind of how it'd work out. So again, the hitch, you're driving down on that. You're not letting that free anymore. Now his positioning's kind of soft, but that's okay. You have these guys that should be bracketing the corner route, but in the end, they just kind of both get beat. The running back is covered by the middle linebacker, but he gets beat. And, I'm okay with that. A big, plugger middle linebacker shouldn't necessarily be able to cover a shifty running back. And I'm definitely okay with that. Number 2 is getting man-to-man by this outside vertical hook, and then this vertical is covered by that safety, and that cloud flat would have drifted underneath, but at that point I already threw the ball, so you actually didn't get a chance to see that. Now the closest thing that we have to match cover 2 in this game, I would say, is the cover 2 side of cover 6 trap. Now there are a few things different here than what I was explaining with the rules before, but it actually does a pretty good job. The only thing is, again, you know, it's only one side of this defense, and although I'm really big on split field defenses, it would be nice to have a full field version of this. Now cover 2 sync looks like it could be something like this, but cover 2 sync is mostly spot drop, just those soft squats are matching. You know, cover 2, much like cover 3 in this game, is spot drop with some match coverage built into it, and that creates all sorts of confusion for the players, you know, the AI defenders, and also the people using it. Anyway, so what's cool about this, again, if we have a flat from number 2, that soft squat is going to jump it. Now he's not that you know, he's pretty good. He's pretty aggressive. He can jump that. If there's no flat, well, he's actually going to convert man coverage on that post. Now I think traditionally for these match cover 2, he wouldn't do that, but I'm definitely okay with that. Also, if the number 3 is flat, the soft squat is going to jump that as well. So that's actually really, really cool. Now, what you'll notice here, if that soft squat is jumping and he's no longer able to cover the post, well, actually the safety now takes over, and though he doesn't get great leverage, he matches that post all the way across the field. So that's really, really cool. But because the rules, again, are slightly different, I don't think they're quite where they should be, you still get exposed by smash, right? Where the underneath is just going to be left free for days, just like that. Because the cornerback has to sink to cover the corner route, where he doesn't really need to. He can jump on that underneath route because that outside linebacker and that safety should be able to help on that corner route. Also, the behavior of that outside linebacker is kind of shady. Sometimes he matches vertical on the number 2, as you saw there, which is really good, but sometimes he doesn't. So I think if I put this number 3 on a flat right here, it's the middle linebacker that actually matches, and then he actually kind of gives up on it eventually. So this is something that obviously wasn't a huge focus. I think this was, you know, bits and pieces of it were added throughout the game to add this logic to cover 6 and cover 9. But I think it's something that could lay the foundation for a match coverage cover 2 going, you know, in the future. So I think some of those things would be great to tidy up a little bit, where that cornerback can be a little bit more aggressive on, say, a hitch or a smoke screen from number 1, where the vertical hook is, you know, man to man on that number 2, and that safety is a little bit more aggressive with a little bit better leverage. And then again, it'd be really cool if we can pair that with the pattern matching cover 2 on the other side of the field as well. So it's not just cover 4 and cover 2. We can do cover 2 and cover 2. Also with cover 3, you know, we should be able to do match cover 3 on one side with match cover 2 on the other side. Anyway, I think that's definitely something that'd be cool to see. Let me know what you guys think. If you'd like to see this coverage going in the future, what kind of things you'd like to see, particularly with coverage. I think that's kind of what I'm focusing on right now. Definitely let me know in the comments, and even on Twitter if you're following me there. Anyway, that's it for this one, and I'll see you guys in the next one.